All right, so today I'm just going to go over, as you've seen on the title. I guess you could say I gave up. I gave in. I'm gonna use the Chemiclean. I was doing the all the other stuff we discussed in the previous videos. That it did seem like it was working. It was a little slow. I kind of want to speed things up because I want to be able to add things to the tank and expand the videos here instead of just talk about cyano on every video. So I decided to try the Chemiclean. I do have a bit of the video here that does show what was going on with it, where it was going, and then also it does show on there 48 hours after I used the Chemiclean. So let's get into the video. All right, so here's the cyano here after doing this is basically controlling the phosphates and nitrates and doing daily testings, making sure everything stays in check. As you can see, I still have it. It's much less than previous videos. However, with it, being like this, it still wasn't going away. You'll see here, I have another clip after this where you can see where it has actually went from this stage to worse, and it would go back and forth. I never did the whole blackout thing like, a lot of people were talking. I did actually leave the lights off on the tank one day, which did seem to it actually did really reduce it. That was just one day of no lights, but I just didn't feel like it. My corals aren't looking that great right now. For the most part, they're still there, but they're struggling. And so, you can see here on the power head there that there's still some, cyano's building up on it. I got, a variety. You see the little one, bubble algae there. If you look back in the back here, you can see it's still down there. It's not ideal by any means. I think that if you did maintain this for a period of time, I think you could beat it, because I was adding Dr. Tim's, both of them in there, the Refresh and I can't think of the other one at this time. And it was helping, but I just think that between the light and the cyano outbreak, as large as it was, that it was just too much for it to get ahead of. And so, I was going to keep going when it was like this, but once it went for a little while here, you'll see here shortly in the next clip that it went from this phase to a much worse phase, like basically overnight. Like it, here you can see there's even some, I don't know, it just, everything is just looking ugly. The corals, they're not fully opened up, and I mean, they're open and they're alive, but they're not, thriving. It's just not, it's just basically not the way I had hoped it to be. So then, going into this next stage here, this is probably 2 days later. You can see where some of the red on the power head turned to green, but then you can see also where the red has actually gotten worse. You can see how it spread again on the rocks. And it was going back and forth like this day to day. Like one day, this is without doing any kind of like siphoning or sifting. This is just basically adding the Dr. Tim's, bacteria and, making sure that my nitrates are not at zero and making sure that the phosphate is not at zero but low. And it was just a roller coaster. It was going from where you see it here, where you've seen it in the previous video, or previous clip, to where it is now. And it just wasn't doing what it needs to do. You look in the back, it's even growing up the back wall back there. That thing looks like a whole creature by itself. I got another, it's starting to spread over the rocks again. The fish don't seem to mind it, but I just don't want to be looking at it. It's not, it makes me not want to add things or do things to the tank while it's like that. But so here I added this. This is the Chemiclean that I put in there. So basically, states on there, cleans stains from red cyanobacteria in aquariums, oxidized trapped organic sludge and sediment, aquarium water to brings aquarium water, I should say, to crystal clear, promotes ideal enzymes. It does state that it is safe for fish, safe for reef tanks, invertebrates, nutrifying bacteria, and desirable macroalgae. It's real simple. It doesn't take much, just one of these little tiny, I don't know what you call it, little measuring sticks. Just basically one of them per 10 gallons of water. I have a 32.5 gallon tank, and obviously I do have rock and whatnot in there, so I did only end up putting like 2.5 of these in there and then stirring it up. I want to make a note here that it does specifically state that the oxygen levels will need added aeration while you're doing this. It is just a 48-hour treatment. So you'll be able to see here what happens in the next 48 hours, on the tank. So it says to turn off the UV sterilizer, ozonizer, any carbon treatment or anything, stop all that for the 48 hours. So basically I did do all that. And then here we got this is where I'm going to be. Basically what I did here is I went in and I actually siphoned out as much of that red as I could. This is before I put the Chemiclean in. I went through, blew off the rocks, siphoned it out, did almost probably, maybe more than I should have, but probably about a 50% water change by the time I ended up getting all that, as much of it as you can see sucked out of there. It actually is looking much better right now, but had I not obviously went with the Chemiclean, come tomorrow, it would have been basically just like it was in the first part of the video, and then slowly progressed to worse. So I'm just putting in the Chemiclean right now. That's all I did to it there. I didn't have a picture here of the air stone, but basically it's just an air pump with an air stone. I stuck it in the back in the filter box so that it didn't put bubbles all over the tank. And then 48 hours later, here we go. Here's what it looks like now. Take a note on this. I wish I'd have changed the light color a little bit so it's better, but you can definitely tell even in this light color that it's gone. It's completely been eliminated. There's a little bit on one of the, not this well, there's on the fans in there. If you look, some of the cyano's still on that power head. But if you look around the corals and around the rock here, the close-ups, and then if you look at the edge of the sand, it even, how you usually have that green-red combination in the sand there up against the glass, it even, wiped that out. So that's even clean inside there. Everything in the tank actually almost instantly started looking better. So, some of the corals opened up a little bit better, and, they're not perfect by any means, but they are looking better just with this dose. I did find out by doing this here, though, there are some underlying problems here over the last couple months of messing around with this that I wasn't addressing because I was, festering over the red. Is I do have kind of a bubble algae breakout now that I'm going to have to try to address. And some of the aptasia, that I was keeping pretty well under control here, you'll see it in spots here where some of them actually grew, and they're going to need to be taken care of. Also, there are some spots on the rock, as you can tell, where the hair algae is actually grew, and that all kind of grew. I had that pretty well taken care of, but I guess not at this point. So that'll be my next phase here. I don't know how long this... I'm not a big one to put chemicals and that kind of stuff like this in a tank, because you never know what... I don't know personally what the long-term effects of this are or what it's going to change as far as any water chemistry, if it does change any at all. But we'll, keep an eye on that. And hopefully, things work out all right. But there's no telling for sure. The bicolor blenny there is out and happy where, with all that red, he was kind of hiding. You couldn't hardly even see him half the time. The fish are out, swimming, being active. So everything about the tank is actually looking better at this point. Hopefully it can stay that way. But that, I just wanted to give you guys an update here. I think the long term, there's one of them Aptasia I was talking about. The long term, what do you want to say? If I would have stuck with the low and slow, just keeping everything in check, that method, I think I would have eventually gained on it. Maybe even got rid of it, but this way it kind of, I believe, it's going to give it a little bit of a head start. I'm not saying that it's not going to come back, but I am going to be, dosing here, more bacteria now. And I think the bacteria have a better chance keeping up with it because, obviously the cyano is not sucking everything out of the water as fast as it can. But you can see, like, that's a star polyp up there. Well, it's a bad picture of it, unfortunately, but, they're not green right now, but the hair algae is starting to grow around it here, and that all happened, you can see the bubble algae is forming on that rock. That's some little green spots. So that coral there's a spot that looks like it in the center there that kind of was covered with the red stuff. I kept blowing it off. It seems like it's still alive, but it's got a little ways to recover. The zoas, they all got green bubble algae and stuff inside of them now that I never seen it because they had so much of that red on it that. So now the next thing I'm going to have to do is figure out probably get an emerald crab or two, see, if they can help me out with that bubble algae, get that part of it straightened out, because it's the next challenge here, unless, of course, the cyano does come back. I'm going to keep you updated on it. I do want to, obviously add to this tank and do different things to it. And so with that said, I didn't want to do that while all that cyano was, all over the place. So I probably still won't do anything right away just to see what happens, if that cyano does come right back or it does not. I did end up losing my peppermint shrimp. I will make a note of that. I'm not sure if that was because of the Chemiclean or if it just happened to be the luck of the draw, but I did lose him during this 48-hour treatment. And so, that's an unfortunate loss there, but I can't even, say that was the case or not, because they can die for other things as well. But it did happen during this process, so I don't know if he was, shedding at the time. They say they're a little bit more susceptible to changes when that's happening, but we'll see how that. I'll end up having to, if I want another one of them, I'll end up getting one here once I know things are under control. I'm going to take a couple days here now, do some daily checks on the alkalinity, the phosphate, the nitrate, the pH, and do another water change here now and see if I can, get everything to the exact levels or close to the levels I want, and then maintain them there in hopes that does actually keep the cyano at bay. If it does not, then we're going to have to, I guess we'll have to go from there, see what method we're going to take at that time. But as you can tell, looking on the back and all over, as a whole, the tank itself, it looks so much better. It's night and day difference here, and it was all within 48 hours. So with cyano, being triggered by light, and then of course you have corals in the tank and you need light. It's kind of you're fighting yourself, because you could shut the lights out and basically within 3 days have your tank look like this without adding anything to it. But then in the same sense, do you take a risk at completely losing the corals that you have in your tank? I've seen different videos and talked to different people, that have done it. And most of them will tell you that almost certainly, if not all, you will lose something in your tank, with a blackout for like 3 days. And some people I've heard have gone as far as 5 days. But then I've also heard that after their blackout, a couple days later, it's right back. So I don't know if that's going to also be the case with the Chemiclean, or if the Chemiclean actually, because it does say on it that it is an algicide. So I don't know if it actually kills it. Well, as you can see, the Chemiclean did seem to clean it up, I mean, fast. So I don't know how long this is going to last, if this is a temporary thing, if this is going to be long-term. You know, I'll keep you updated on that as well. So we'll go from there. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Until next time,